Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and thank you so much for joining our show today. And today we have a very important special guest. Thank you, Simon, Mr. Simon Hefti. Welcome to our Insight Sharing show, and we're so glad to meet you virtually. Hope one day you can come to Vietnam and we can see you in person. Yeah, so welcome. For our honor, would you please introduce yourself a bit for our audience?
Of course, happy to. I started out doing physics. I studied in Switzerland, had a very lucky time because we were working on space missions. And as you know, space missions have years and years and years of planning. And somehow by chance, I came into the moment when we first had the equipment still on the Earth, and then the rocket actually flew the mission, and I was able to get the data and work on the data. So that was a wonderful time. I loved doing that. I also spent almost 2 years in the States in the same thing, working on space physics, studying the sun. And then actually switched to software engineering. So then made a switch, went into software engineering, learned everything you need to know to build robust, reliable systems in software. And then 2005, realized, hey, I can bring these two things together. I can actually combine my love or my passion for data and my expertise in working with computer systems, and found a company around that. I didn't do that alone. So together with my good friend, we started out building a company. Today, it's 150 people in 3 locations, which are doing exactly that. So very, very lucky to have been able to do that and to be on that journey. Still on the journey, right? It never finishes. It continues. In my private life, I'm married. I have 3 wonderful sons, all grown up. One of whom you have met. And I love doing jazz. So I'm a double bass player. That's really my escape time, if you like. I try to do like 10 public concerts per year, and it takes me into a different space. So when I'm doing jazz, I'm in a different headspace, and I like that.
Simon, you have a beautiful journey, and you introduced to us in about 2.5 minutes, and that's not fair for our audience. You look at your life, you're a scientist, you're a researcher, you're a lecturer, you're a musician, you're an entrepreneur, and that you wear many different hats involved into different projects. And this conversation, if you share in 2.5 minutes about your life, is not fair. Okay, so we're gonna travel time. We're gonna examine the journey that leading to the amazing works you've been doing, and I'll lead the way. So when I was little, I wanted to become an astronaut because we grew up in a very poor community. So one night we had electricity, the next night we did not have electricity. So it's dark. I really enjoy, when the moon arises, so we can see things clearly. And Vivian, she wanted to become a singer. As a musician, but life has taken us to a very different path to what we're doing today. So for Simon, when you were little, what was your dream about your future and the works that you are going to do when you're growing up?
So I had the 2 things from the very beginning, I think. So I like to tinker with television sets and radio sets. So, I was looking into electronics and trying to understand what's going on. I built my own transmitter and was pestering the neighborhood with this, disturbing the radio signal, stuff like that. And at the same time was really interested into music. So I started out, and I'm really grateful for that. So it's kind of my parents insisted on me learning my first instrument. It was a classical education in music, which I found quite tedious at that point in time. And I remember very well, every half a year you were forced to show what you had learned in front of your parents. So there was a gathering in the evening, and people, all the kids needed to show what they had, well, play a piece for the audience. And this was really, the first time I was on stage, and it taught me. In hindsight, I realized how much I learned in that phase. At the point in time, I was just doing it because I was asked to do it. But I had those two elements, music, if you like, and electronics or technical parts from the very beginning. So I didn't set my dream like you did as an astronaut, but I realized these are passions. I have fun doing that.
Wow. And in your family, was there any like a genetics, like from your father, your mother, or it's like, something that you grow up and you have the love for it separately?
Oh, thanks for bringing this up. So my mother is an archaeologist, so she was or still is interested in, how the humanity evolved and the artifacts which document that history along the way. So it's kind of it's a mixture of being a detective and trying to decipher what you find, and then putting it into context. So that was one piece. And my dad was an artist. He passed away quite a long time ago. He was an artist. He built sculptures, so mostly from stone, not only from stone, and that was really a very inspiring education, I wanted to say, but an experience growing up with that input all the time in our household.
And as a young person loving electronics, and when you introduced about your journey, it looked like that you study, if I hear correctly, you study about electrical engineering after you study your PhD in physics and everything. So why not the other way around?
To be honest, I was scared about physics. So I felt that this was an interest of me, and I was going back and forth, should I try it or should I not try it? And ultimately said to myself, well, let's give it a shot. Let's see how far we can go. And then it worked out. So I was enjoying it. I was catching up with my colleagues, and I was able to do that. So I was really very happy in that place. But it was not clear to me from the beginning. I just said, let's give it a try. I don't know if it will work. If it doesn't, then it's okay. I can always find different things. That's how it came.
And how did you end up going to the US and continue your research on the space back then?
So I was lucky in, as I described, in finding that special moment during a space mission. So this was one part. The University of Bern was very strong in that field. So we had an international collaboration with many different universities, given that the University of Bern actually was on the first lunar landing, was an experiment on the first lunar landing. So it was kind of a strong connection from that space. And this is also the place where I met Thomas Turbucken. We are from the same, we actually went to school together, but we really got acquainted a bit after that when doing physics. And he convinced me to come to his place. So he really convinced me to join him in Michigan and come to work with him there. So that's how I then did that jump. My oldest son was 4 at the time, so he came with us. Our middle son was born there. That was a really exciting time.
So Lucas wasn't in the picture yet back then.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right. and when we talk about the whole thing that you're sharing here, there was the missing piece that I have not seen is the piece of data driven, the love for the data and machine learning and AI. And When did all of that come into picture?
So that's really the physics which brought this to me, right? So what you do in physics is you do measurements. So you watch how an apple falls off the tree, if we stay with Newton for this example, and you may take measurements. How long does it fall, and you start making variations. And these are observations which you then try to bring into a coherent story and finally come up with the law of gravitation. So that's basically what physics is doing, and that's a major part of what physics is doing. Let's put it this way, and that's what I learned there. So I learned to observe. I learned to systematically go through different variables, take record of these. So we all handwritten at that point in time. So we took notes of these measurements, and I had one insight which was really blowing me away. We took a very simple experiment that was early on in the studies, where we had lamps made out of special pure gases which emit a light, and if you look at this light through a prism or through a grid, you see the spectral lines. So you see very distinct colors, and these lines have a certain distance from each other because of the angle the light passes towards that screen where you capture the light. And once you measure those distances, you can directly understand how the atom works which emits that light. And this was kind of mind-blowing. All of a sudden you have this simple experiment, and we see into the middle of how the electrons behave around the atom, and that told me really the power of the data. So you take really with centimeters, so you're not even that accurate when taking the measurements. You look at these distances between the lines, but with the explanation, with the the Bohr model of how the atom works, then you can immediately understand how the atom works on that level, on the electron level. And so that kind of experience told me the power of the data, and never left me from then on.
Wow. From that one single experience, and now becoming the world-renowned experts on data-driven, that's a whole journey in between. Okay, so as a student of science into the world-class expert, what did you do in between that made you onto that stage?
So what you learn when doing physics is you're really asked to be very accurate in what you explain, and also in your reasoning. So it really teaches you to be quite pedantic on how to have your argument. And when I moved into software engineering after that, I realized a similar type of work ethics is required there as well. It needs, one system we did is the timetable planning for the railways. So you really need to be quite precise and quite strict and disciplined on how these systems work, and where cases are which could break that work, and then make sure that never happens. Or if you have financial transactions balancing between banks, a similar important system, it just needs to work. Even if you do a point of sale system for a retailer, another project we were working on, you might say, okay, it's a retailer, maybe not as dramatic, but still it needs to be working reliably and stable, and it must be accurate, and people complain if they get charged too much for something. So what this time taught me is about discipline in building these systems, in being careful about, we always called them, it's easy to build a system for good weather cases. That's often the first thing you do, right? It works. Well, it works when all the conditions are perfect. And then, of course, the peculiarities of the day-to-day life come in. And that's the real test whether a system survives or not. And so that was, and I remember more than one situation that with long nights because where I had to learn that in the hard way. So in one specific example, we were building a system for ticker symbols. You know, that's the time when we put stock prices to websites. And we were building a new release of that system, and I think at 2 or 3 in the morning we needed to decide we need to roll back to the previous version because the new version is not up for the job. So it's midnight oil, but you learn the hard way that if you don't do the system well, it simply will come and bite you back, right? So you need to prepare yourself. So you learn a rigor. You learn you gain experience of what happens if you don't plan carefully. So I think these were steps one after the other. The other element is, and that's something which I really learned to appreciate over the time. You're in constant interaction with people. You have people who use these systems. You have people who design the requirements for these systems. So you're not on a technical side alone, but you are always around human beings with beliefs, with preferences, with their own culture. And you need to find a way through, you need to navigate that landscape. And so that was the second learning from that phase. So if we tie that back to the university, at the time when we did, when I was studying, this part we didn't learn. That was really what you learn is technical expertise. As I said, strict thinking, disciplined thinking, but the interactions, understanding how to convince people, how to align people. I think that's one of the biggest elements that I learned afterwards in real life in those projects.
So that the human-centered design part, right? So tell us, how did you figure out that part along the way after all the technical experience and learning from the university, and now you came to the picture of working with actual human beings and figured out, all the technicality is just a part of the picture, and the part, the bigger part is the part of working with other people. So why did you learn how to harmonize that?
I think 3 major inputs to that. So one was really bloody nose, right? So trying it a different way and realizing it simply doesn't work. So I had a couple of examples where I had not yet realized the importance of it, and I need to circle back and change my approach, because I realized when I don't recognize this human factor, then I just cannot do the next step. So I had a couple of projects where, of course, I had help around me, but for me alone, I would not have been able to manage it. So learning by experience was one thing. A second one was I did a course once, and I remember well, we had quite a nice thought experiment in that education. The situation is you are in your plane crashed in the Canadian tundra, so it's really hard to survive. And but you survived the crash. Now the question is, can you survive the tundra? And the ask was, I believe it was 10 people to find a common understanding on how to use the tools which were still at our disposal in a correct order in order to maximize our success. And what I learned there is that even if you have a good answer to the problem, that doesn't mean that the group buys that answer. Right? So you could have the best possible answer. If you cannot bring the group along, if the group finds different priorities, then the idea is worth nothing. And so through education, through training, we looked into that, and that was a second very important input. And the third one is clearly my friend with whom I founded the company, who was very, still is, very keen on that. He has almost a third eye. When he reads an email, he sees what is written between the lines, right? So he sees context which I have a much harder time to see, and I learned a lot from him on Hans Peter to think about what's going on. What is the motivation of the other person? Why are they behaving in this way and not in another way? And trying to bring that into the picture really gives you the better viewpoint. And so I picked up from him quite a lot.
Wow. So one is through the learning, and then through the experience, and then through your friends, the people that you work with, right? And yeah. Simon, you know a lot of people, amazing people, through your work, through your teaching, through different hats that you've been wearing. So and there's an old saying that our worth is the value of the sum of the 5% we spend most of the time with, right? So I'm curious, as a chairman for D1 and the creator of what is that, Hefti, right? Herlock.ai and the data experts. How do you pick people into your inner circle, though?
So first, that's I think it's a very tough question, but I like it a lot. I think this topic of diet in terms of the food is very clear to us, right? That we are careful of what we consume because it influences us in terms of our body. And that the same is true for the mind. So if you mentioned news in the COVID phase, and you mentioned you wanted to have something opposing this negativity, I think having a diet in the news you consume is a second very important element to care for and to create, so that you take conscious decisions of what you are exposing yourself to. And the one we are talking about now is the friends you surround you with. And I really believe the people you have around you are the main factor. So it pays in selecting them very carefully and very cautiously also. Mm-hmm. And now the question how to do that, it boils down to smell, right? It's as silly as it, and of course we don't consciously smell each other, but I think we realize when we are close to other people, do we like them or don't we like them? And of course, if I do recruiting, I have developed techniques on which help me to figure out, is a person could it work? And one question is this famous long haul flight. Would I be at ease with this person sitting next to me on my next flight to Vietnam, right? Or would I get bored? So that's an important question. What is important to me is how quick people are in thinking. So often I expose people to surprises, not because I want to scare people, but because I want to see how agile are they in their thinking. So how quickly can they adjust to a new topic, to an unexpected topic. So one thing I like doing is asking about a hobby, and then taking this hobby to bring up an interesting question around the hobby, which is not easy to look up or have an answer to, and then try to see how can a person go into that challenge.
So start with something easy, familiar, and start to dive in deeper into different areas of of path of interest, and then you see from there, right? And Simon, from your science background onto the business world, normally a lot of scientists, a lot of researchers will fail onto the intersection, go into the business world. So you mentioned earlier that you felt confident that now you can bring all what you know onto the business world, and then starting your own company. Bring us to that moment of realizing that you can start a business. You can work with your friends to co-found D1 and bring all the know-how that you've been accumulating over the years. Now go into corporations, go into government, go into companies that are offering that and bring real value out for your clients. Bring us to that moment, and what happened in your head?
Again, this was a rather scary moment, right? So it's yes, you learn what I realized when doing the software engineering part is that I can solve complex problems for clients. So you build a confidence of yes, we can actually raise to the challenges what these clients have, and typically they were not standard problems, but very specific questions. Often we also were not familiar with the business domain, so we needed to learn about the business domain as well. So basically we gained experience. Yes, this works. So somehow we have the capability to manage it. But then founding a company is another step, right? So you say, okay, now I'm doing that on my own. I'm putting out my name about this. So it was a scary moment. Ultimately, we were ready to do that. And then the first 18 months, and this is really Hans-Peter's work, it took a lot of perseverance. You go out there, say, hey, we are this new cool company. We have 1 employee, or let's say 2 employees. Please hire us. That's a hard sell, right? So you do that for a while, and then eventually you have a project. Somebody actually hands over a project to you, and you can prove that it's worthwhile doing this with you. You start hiring people, and so other potential employees see, look, it seems to be working, people are there. So you basically build up a success step by small step. But the first 12 to 18 months, we were basically burning our founding money and trying to bring everything to get to work. So that's why I'm saying it was scary before, and then also takes really perseverance to go through that phase.
You mentioned, a team of 1 and 2 coming to a corporation, having a new call every day, and it's hard sell for like 12 to 18 months, and most of companies will fail in the first 2 years of that, right? So bring us to a moment to celebrate your first client who said, Simon, I trust you. I'm going to give you this particular project, make it work for us. So bring us to that celebration, okay?
But that's an important point. I'm not good at celebrating, so I don't think we did that. Now that you're mentioning that, we should have done. But yes, it was really one of the I think it was the very first project which had this, should I do A or B question, right? So you have basically 2 options on how to proceed. and you call in an expert to figure out what are the pros and cons of the two. And this was, first of all, yes, very cool to have the project to be able to do that. And then also very a difficult job, because as you know, if you look at the human angle, having a technical assessment is not the full picture. There are people which have a preference for the one solution and other people for the other solution. And then navigating that was really the challenge in that project. But we did not celebrate that. We didn't open a bottle of champagne at that moment. We just said, okay, now we have it, let's do the work. So that's basically how we did it.
So back then you had your all three kids already, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And for months of burning your own money, your own investments onto the business, and that perseverance, that's something inside of you to have the belief that D1 is going to work out and everything will turn out fine. So what message did you talk to yourself? Did you talk to each other in the team? Did you talk to your family member to make sure that we have everybody on board with the vision that we saw back then?
So as I said, this is really to a large degree, this is Hans Peter's work, Hans Peter's perseverance. So he was really the one staying on course. But in the back of our heads, it was very clear, and that's still true today, right? So we think that every one of our employees tomorrow would have another job. The reason that people are here is not because we are, let's say, outrageous in salaries or because they cannot find any other opportunities. No, they are here because they like it here. And it was a bit the same for us at this time. We liked what we were doing. As I said, Hans-Peter did the vast part of the work. And we also knew if it fails, we still have the ability to find a new way of working. So it was not, yes, money burned, and we kept that under tight control. So we were very careful with KPIs and with tracking where we are in the progress. So that was an important step. But it was not kind of the end of the world, right? So we were aware that should it not work, we would find a way.
Wow. And when you started the companies in 2005, am I correct?
Yep.
Yeah, and then the world of data-driven scientists back then is a lot different, or maybe something different than the world we have right now with big data and everything. So with AI coming to the picture, and you are amongst very first person involved into machine learning and involved into artificial intelligence, where do you see that AI gonna come into handy to help us have business to understand more about data and make the best return on investment from that?
So what we saw very clearly is that you're completely right. It changed. The picture changed completely from 2005 to now, and it's changing in a super fast pace also from now onwards. But what became clear is that data is being recognized in business as a very important element to take decisions. So it has certainly strengthened since then, but already 2005 it was very visible. This is a growth market. And for us it was obvious, if you come from physics or if you come from mechanical engineering, you're not surprised. You say, yes, that's what we are doing, what we have been doing in physics all along, and now it takes root in a business perspective as well. And this part was there already. The tools, as you say, completely different. Most of the tools we worked with then, maybe the brand still exists, but they're no longer very strong. and have been replaced with completely different tools and also approaches. And then, of course, ChatGPT came along, the generalized pre-trained transformer came into the picture, which has taken us yet to a complete other journey. But this fundamental element that data represents the world, it's a way for us to understand what's going around us. And when we use that data, we learn stuff which gives us better insights into what customers are doing, better insights in where we spend cost, which we can avoid, better insights into risks and time, if we detect risk early, time to mitigate them. That was clear. That was clear already then, and it has not changed since then.
All of your projects that you involve in coming from very different fields, from railroad, from banking, from mobile app, from very different environment, right? So how can you enter into those newness and make sure that you can help your clients to make the best of what they have, and work on the system that can generate data that add values for them?
So only with the help of these clients, right? So basically, when we start out in a new domain which we are not familiar with, what we need to do is we look at the data and try to get our way around the data. That's one source of information, and that's can be quite a task in itself. But the second important element is then listening to what people's experiences are. So it really helps if you have. Now, I want to say that in a stronger way. It doesn't work if you don't have that expertise in the team and have people who can help you understand, look, this is how it works, this is how the process is. If it's a regulated business, these are the things the regulator is looking for. So insights like this you learn in collaboration with the client. What we bring then to the picture is typically, and that always surprises me, typically businesses look at one specific slice of their data. So they might be looking at the marketing side of the data. And another team is looking at the production side of the data, but there is no team which combines the two and says, if we have a problem in production, maybe 6 years later we see it in complaints. That kind of connection. I'm talking in general terms. Of course, there are companies who do that, but sometimes it surprises me. So what we are doing is we bring data together from all the aspects which make sense, and typically we try to find something where you can attach the data to. So if you are in healthcare, the obvious thing to attach the data to is the human's life. So you have basically a life from birth to the current state, and all the things which happen you can bring to that timeline, basically. So that would be one step. And then when we do that, we usually find things which surprise us. And then we go back to the people and say, hey, we have seen this pattern. Are you familiar with this? Is this something you're aware of, or is this a surprise to you? And in many cases, they say, yeah, that's clear, that's because of, and then okay, that's nothing special there, that's just a way of this particular business. And sometimes they say, hey, no, wait a minute, that cannot, and then the typical reaction is that cannot be, right? That your data must be wrong. And then we start digging. And eventually we say, no, actually we have uncovered a particular insight which is relevant for that business. So that's typically the process. And along the way, of course, you have the help of AI to work on that entire project. You have machine learning to detect patterns. But that's the general story. Yeah.
When I listen to what you share, right, it feel like the five sense of us as a human beings is fully used when we're analyzing data and want to become a data expert. For example, like there's a lot of people out there, a lot of students out there would love to get into your field, and they need to learn how to smell, like you said earlier, smell somebody, smell, you know, whoever next to you, so that you smell client, you smell your customers, right? You smell the market, and you touch, you listen, you look at the data and everything. So over those years, what did you do to make that five sense, maximize it and bring it best use to your work and to your life?
I like this framing you're doing. I haven't thought about it in this way, but that's exactly right. You need to bring together all the senses and bring a combination of that together. So to me personally, what I learned while still doing the software engineering, so before D1, is that when I'm too detached from groundwork, I kind of space out. I lose the grounding with what is possible and what is not possible. So, and one very obvious manifestation of that is you start writing proposals which are unrealistic, right? You promise too much for too little a price. And of course, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're responsible for a business, you know that that spells trouble, right? That's not a good thing. So I realized I need to stay in touch with the day-to-day work. So I have this hobby or this need to do work like this by myself because it gives me the relevant grounding, and I keep doing that. The second thing which I really like doing is describing important developments in the field. So I do a weekly LinkedIn post. I talk about things which are developing or which I learned over the time. And this helps me reflect. So of course I appreciate a lot if I get feedback from those posts, but frankly, I think I'm the one who learns the most because I need to reflect on how things work. I need to force myself to look into things I'm not familiar with, and that makes sure I stay close to what's happening. I don't think I have the full coverage, but I have a view and think about it and bring it into an understandable story. I think that's the second one. And then last year I did an exercise which I completely underestimated. I wrote a book. I brought together I brought together what I learned over the past 20 years, and same here. It was really helpful to structure the thoughts and to bring it to the key points. But I completely underestimated how much work it is. You know, I was thinking I was through in half a year, but no. Yeah, it was like that. But these are tools. These are tools to me.
Yeah, and thanks for writing that, because that all the year of experience now you put onto something that can be accessible by people everywhere. So it's help for them to have, you know, to learn from your years of experience. And Simon, my wife and I, throughout interviewing so many experts in over 100 countries and all 7 continents, we found out that behind their success, behind the works that they love doing, and you know, behind their stories, there's a mindset that we name later on called NEWNESS mindset. So they're not afraid of change. They lean on to something new. They learn something new. They met new people. They met new clients. They drive it into new data to find out what's there that yet seen, or the clients yet seen, and from there, that's how they create values for themselves, for other pupils, right? And that's perhaps what make them, you know, then their brand be known. And And when I got into your website, D1, it's like change needs different way of thinking. So
Yes.
we have two questions in this part. One, and we start one by one, okay? If you look at your life and you look at the beautiful things that NEWNESS has brought onto your life through the experiment of getting to the unknown area and let new thing lead the way, you can share the story for us and our audience so that they can feel confident of change and lean into something new. What would the story that you can share for us?
I'll pick the double bass experience, because to me that was really bringing many aspects of that together. So I did, as we discussed, I did music throughout my life, but at one point I was hopping from instrument to instrument, and at one point I came to the conclusions, a bit with pressure from outside, that I should learn a new instrument. And then you say, okay, how do I do that? Of course, you need the instrument, you need a teacher, all these things, and then you need to start studying. And what I learned, and this is a tremendous help, is in that particular field there are what is called jam sessions. So basically, it's a group of people who do music together, and you are asked to the stage for like 3 pieces, and you can join in, and then it's a rotation and other people come in there as well. And this is where I learned the most, or still learn the most, because you are exposed. You need to react in the moment. You don't know which song will be played, right? So this will be decided ad hoc while on stage. You don't control the tempo. Some groups like to play really fast, and I'm not that trained at this particular thing, so I struggle the faster it gets. And you just expose yourself. So I don't like cold water, but I like exposing myself in new things, like I would jump into cold water, right? So really get there and start doing it for real, and you get feedback for the learning through that the most. And this worked for me in every aspect of my life. So when I was studying, I started doing. I was a teacher for computer courses, so I was helping people understand C compilers and Word and things like that. And I never did that before, obviously, and I just jumped into it and learned by doing. And I always do it like this. I expose myself to what I should learn, and then learn by doing that. Yeah.
Improvise, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So your word is always operate by yes and yes and yes and what else that you could do. So the second question that we would love to ask is, and we ask every single expert joining our program, is about their ability to think, because we believe that there's so many things that affecting our thinking these days, so many noises, so many distractions. So how have you been expanding your ability to think, Simon?
Taking a step back, giving yourself space to reflect is really, really important, I think. So designing deliberate spaces where you can reflect and go over your thoughts. So I do handwritten notes for this reason, right? So I have my notebook with me, and I take notes throughout the day, and then I come back, I revisit, I pick out what is important, what do I need to carry forward, not in the sense of to-dos, but in the sense of learnings. What is in there which is important to the way I behave, to the way I work, or to the things I miss. So I think really making space for reflection is an important aspect of, I believe, of what you are discussing. I did a retreat in India for 2 times, a month each, and this is a wonderful opportunity for reflection. So that's not well, maybe it's the main purpose, but that's not why I went there. But it has that side effect. And in fact, the idea for the book I was discussing earlier came while there. So I was there and then said, okay, that's a project I'll attack once I'm back. The other thing I mentioned before is this reflection in writing. So really trying to explain something to someone else in simple terms helps me sharpen my thinking, because I know, and that's also why I like doing the teaching, because it helps me bring thoughts to a point, to a clarity, so that I can share and people can follow.
Wow. Thank you. Let me travel back in time with you, to meet your very, very early stage in life, your little Simon, okay, that on one afternoon, he stay at home, break things apart, open the stuff and look at things inside and reassemble them all together. Wanted to become an engineer, want to understand the world from an engineering mind, right? And now you, me, Vivian, gonna get into that room. Okay, you're gonna meet that little Simon. You're gonna tell him a piece of advice, a piece of wisdom about his future, anything that you could tell that young Simon. What is that you're gonna tell him?
So I have two. I think I have 2 points. I like this question a lot. I think it's a very important question. One is I was for quite a long time not trusting myself enough for things I can do, and I think this trust, which childs actually have, right? It's typically little children are not in fact affected by lack of trust. They have a natural feeling of the world is mine. It's basically a kind of, but along the way, I somehow was doubting my abilities, and it took quite a while to reassess that trust and make sure I understand what I can do, where my limits are, and I think trust in yourself is an advice I would give myself if I were to travel back. Maybe not to the 5-year-old, but maybe to the 15 or 20-year-old. Yes. And the second one is we talked about the this understanding of the human network, of the interplay of the different people around you. And I'm still learning to get the best out of that. So I think I could have profited a lot if I had learned that way earlier than I did. And as I said, I'm still learning. So make use of this wonderful resource of the humans around you. They have input for you, and they have insights for you, which you can make good use of.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you,
Last
Simon.
question for this conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
Vivian.
This is come from me.
Okay.
Because I love the answer that you have, and pretty much it's something that I feel like to embrace something new, and you've been learning. I'm hearing a lot of your journeys about learning something new, embrace something new, and you have a beautiful space to have a lot of things going on. But out there's a group of people thinking that to learn something new, I need to empty some of the spaces, and it's hard for them to unlearn and to let go what they trust, that they have put so much thing into it, the discipline, the accuracy that they has been pointing out, and they got stuck there. So I think from your answer previously, it's given me a lot of courage to ask you these questions, because it's hard for people to trust themselves, let go of something that they may have believed in and preventing them to grow.
Absolutely, absolutely. For me personally, this came to the point of physical pain, right? So my body told me, hey, I'm not happy with the way you're going through life. Please change that. And of course, your body doesn't speak, but it gives you that signal. Something needs to change. And I personally, I needed that trigger to go back into the realization. Yes, a change is in order, and I need to. I better do that. You know, I have a benefit if I'm doing that. But I'm very familiar with it. With your saying. I think Bertrand Piccard, the guy who flew in the balloon around the world, had this beautiful photo in one of his talks when the window out of his balloon was frozen. You know, beautiful sun behind it, but it was blocked through ice, and that's exactly the thing you need to go through. You know, it is a barrier you need to go through in order to be able to allow the change. In many times, in many situations in my life, this felt easy. You know, starting something new, going into a new field felt easy. But there are other things where I don't feel at ease at all and need to go through that barrier like everyone else. And it takes energy. It doesn't happen by itself. And in my case, it was physical pain. So my body basically forced or asked me to do a change.
Simon, we said that it's going to be the last question, and we still have 2 minutes in the conversation. I would love to ask a bizarre question, and because it's something I promised to do in every conversation moving forward, and you're going to be our first person that we do the test for NEWNESS. Okay? We would love to use this as an opportunity to send a special message to somebody that's special in your life. So as a gift, so if you can pick somebody that you like to send a message from Simon to that particular person, and what is that you're going to talk to that person, who that person is?
So a couple of things come immediate to my mind. I love my wife. So my wife is very, very special, and I tell her, but I take this opportunity to reinforce that I really like that. I really love her, and I'm very happy she is with me. I'm very grateful for my friendship with Thomas. We have been. We are not close connected. But we are connected over a long time, and we have inputs for each other, which both value very highly. So that's another gratitude out there. And of course, I adore my sons. No question about that.
And I will make sure that Lucas, I will ask him to send this message to your wife, to all of your 3 sons, and to your friend Thomas. And Simon, we're grateful for you to spend your afternoon to join our program, to share with us your wisdom, to all of the learning experience that we have for today, all of the insights, and all of the laugh that we've been having together. We love you, and we will look forward to see you and your family in Vietnam one day all together. Okay.
Thanks so much. It was a pleasure. Thanks for this great conversation. Really appreciated that.
Thank you very much. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you, Lucas.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you soon. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.